Today, my guest is a former WWE developmental talent. You've seen her across Shimmer, Smackdown. Wow, she's a well-traveled professional wrestler, Miss Krissy Vane. How are you, Krissy?
Hey Brian, I'm good. How are you doing?
I can't complain. Today is not a bad day, so that's positive.
Good.
So, what made you want to pursue professional wrestling? How did you get into this crazy industry that people love?
So I was actually a theater kid, but also an athlete. I grew up in North Carolina in like a pretty small town. So when you're from small towns, you can't really be like a model or an actress, but you can be a pro wrestler. So I went to a live show. Actually, when I was in cosmetology school and I was like 18, a girlfriend was a really big WWF fan at that time. And she was like, go to a wrestling show with me. And I was like, oh, that sounds fun. I've never like been to a wrestling show before. So we went to the wrestling show and I was like enamored with the beauty and the athleticism and, the strength of the women. I can remember Ivory standing out like it's just so stunning and so beautiful. And I was like, I think I want to do this. And that was how the initial like seedling started.
Where did you go to train at, or how did all that come to be?
So it actually worked out so like serendipitously and like synchronistically. Like once I made a decision that that was kind of like what I wanted to do, I started researching on the internet, like local wrestling schools, and found out that there was this whole like underground circuit called the Independent, and there was actually Ken Spence's School of Wrestling was by me. In like Winston-Salem. I'm from Greensboro, and I was like researching all the local wrestlers and I had seen Ken Spence's school listed and I was like, oh, cool. But it was like a couple $1,000s. And I was like, oh, I'm like 18. I don't really have a couple $1,000s. So I worked at Supercuts when I was in cosmetology school, like front desk, like just answering phones and stuff. And keep in mind, I had been researching like wrestlers and stuff, like on the internet, like how this whole world, worked.
Mhm.
So lo and behold, Rob McBride, who was a local independent talent, like a 300-pound, like grizzled, like veteran wrestler, rolled up into Supercut. And I was like, oh, I was like, I know you. Listen, he was so flattered that like I recognized him because, indie wrestling. So that was, so he actually invited me to my first wrestling school and I learned how to a body slam on a 300-pound man. So, and it's funny, they never made me pay. They saw enough like natural talent and I think beauty in me that they like never asked me for a dime. So
That's really.
yeah, that was where I started was Ken Spence's wrestling school.
Was it harder than what you thought when you first started getting into professional wrestling, or did some things come easy for you?
I'm pretty tough and I'm pretty athletic naturally.
Hmm.
And I started so young that like I was like a sponge and sort of like an open like and I devour when I like things, I like devour every bit of information. So I read like all the autobiographies, did all the history, watched like all the Starcades and like the old NWA
Hmm.
stuff. And like, I would like study like Ricky Steamboat and Ric Flair like their like feud, like I would like study it and I would be like, okay, I'm gonna be Ric Flair, and I would make my opponent be like Ricky Steamboat because I always like to be heel. So it wasn't too hard for me. Like honestly, it sort of like felt like a natural like ability. It's hard to understand the psychology of
Hmm.
wrestling and like how to put together matches and stuff, but the athletic part and like I'm sort of a character wrestler, so I never really wanted to be like like
Hmm.
a very strategic wrestler. I wanted to play a character because my background was athletics, but also theater. So
Hmm.
I was like, I'll learn the wrestling moves, but really all this Riz is gonna get me, where I need to go.
How long did you train before you started working matches?
I trained for an entire year while I was in cosmetology school, in the barn in Winston-Salem, before I started doing matches. Yeah, a whole year.
Did you stay in that general area afterwards, or when did you start to branch out and get your name out there?
No, so it was quick. Again, like I think that like people just saw sort of like a natural raw talent in me. So no, it was pretty fast. Shortly after my first match, which was funny enough at the Greensboro Coliseum in like the parking lot. And like I was not ready for like a real match at this point, but it was with Alexis Lurie, which is Mickey James, obviously, and
Hmm.
a girl named Persephone. It was a three-way. I did not even have real wrestling boots. I had like little platform, like knee-high boots. I handmade my outfit. It was like a little green like top and then like a black sport. But once I did that show, I started getting invited to things, and then that's how I got involved with CWF Mid Atlantic. I don't remember if Ken Spence's school shut down or whether CWF was just closer to me, but that's when I started getting involved with CWF Mid Atlantic, and then that's where I continued my training with Jeff Rudd. And then I went to an all girls show locally. And I remember when Amber O'Neil walked through the curtain. I remember what she was wearing. She was in a teal, like Britney Spears metallic top, and she got up on like the turnbuckle and like did her little pose, and I was like, oh god, I love her. I was like, oh, she is so special. So I ended up meeting Amber after the show. Obviously, like the people that I was there with, they were like, we want to introduce you to whomever. And I was like, I want to meet her. Like she was just like such a star. She was like the most beautiful girl I'd ever seen. And then I met Amber that night, and then it was just best friends. I mean, it's been 20 something years now. I was 18 or 19 at the time, and still best friends to this day. But we got on the road together and started to just do a lot together, and it was so fun. It was
Do
like
you
a
feel
pretty fast thing.
do you feel like that's what how did your developmental deal come to be? Was it you were getting your name out there and then they saw what you guys were doing and then they invited you down?
Yeah, so Amber and I had well no, they didn't invite me. I bugged the shit out of them. Like, yeah, they definitely didn't just invite me just because. So Amber and I guess I'm 4 years or so in now, maybe 3.5 years or so. So I'm now like in my early 20s. Amber and I had built pretty good names for ourselves, like on the road. Um, and I think that I Googled Stanford,
Hmm.
and I'm pretty sure because it definitely no one like said, oh, send your tape to Tommy Dreamer and Johnny Ace. I definitely like Googled it and did it myself. I'm pretty like self like I'm like I'll figure things out. So I think I Googled it and like sent my tape in, and tape back then. Um so I think I sent it, and then I think Tommy called me for the first time, maybe like within like 6 weeks later, like 6 weeks. And then I had a bunch of tryouts over like a year. I kept getting called. I
Hmm.
went, I was like green as, I thought I was good, but I was like greener than goose shit. And so they kept like calling me in. I mean, I went everywhere. I was in South Carolina, Pennsylvania, like anywhere they called me in to go in for a tryout. I went. And then I got hired in Greenville, South Carolina after about a year of trials and my breast augmentation, funny enough. I had heard through the grapevine that they really liked me, but they
Hmm.
did not, at that time, it was the diva era, right? So I had heard that they really liked me, but that they thought that I needed like a boob job. So my boyfriend at the time, Kevin Matthews, and I like hustled some foot pictures on the internet for a month or two. We and we paid for my breast augmentation in like 4 to 6 weeks in cash. And then I got it done, and then I let WWE know. At this point, I think I'm already on like a pretty friendly basis with Tommy. And so I said, hey, like I got my, boobs done, and he said, okay, come out. At that point, I still couldn't even wrestle. I was so fresh out from surgery, but they hired me on the spot.
That's crazy. That's
Isn't
like
that
that you
so
have to
funny?
call and be like, "Hey, I got this done. How about now?"
Yeah, it
And they're
was the
like, "Come on
times.
down." Yeah.
It was the times back then. That was just, and honestly, aesthetic still matters. Like you
Hmm.
still have, I think I still get booked nowadays because I still look really good. Like
Hmm.
that's a huge part of it. You're an entertainer, and you should look the part. And back then it was like, we were kind of coming off what like the Pam Anderson era and like the
Hmm.
90s and the early 2000s. So absolutely. And I did not, I didn't even care. I was like, I'll do whatever. So yeah, they hired me as soon as I got my implants put in.
So did they just call you and hire you over the phone, or did they have you go down to Deep South to try out?
No, no, no. Johnny Ace hired me in Greenville, South Carolina at
Okay, yeah.
Smackdown. Yeah, he pulled me into the office, and I didn't even have a tryout that day, but I did have my boobs. So, so he called me in the office. He's like, "We're hiring you. We're either going to send you to Kentucky or Deep South, Atlanta, which is the new developmental.
hmm
It's just gotten started, or maybe it hadn't even gotten started at that time. I don't remember because I was one of the probably first
hmm
30 people there. But he said, where would you prefer to go? And I said, well, I said, Atlanta is only 4 hours from my hometown. So I think I'd like to, stay pretty like local where I can get home if I need to and it's not a flight. So that's why I chose Deep South.
What was your first impressions of what WWE developmental was back then in Deep South?
So funny enough, I actually took a huge pay cut to go to WWE. They were
hmm
only paying $500 a week at that time for developmental, and Amber and I were coming home with like $1,500 in a weekend, $1,700 in a weekend, because we would just, you get paid like whatever your wrestling rate is, but then we would have pictures, and then we'd charge for like kisses on the cheeks and Polaroids. I mean, we were banking, so we'd be coming home with like 15, $1,700 every weekend. And, Carolinas, West Virginia, Philly, Tennessee, we could get to all those really, really hot, territory spots in like 5 to 7
hmm
hours. I think we could even get to like part of like Pensacola in like 7 to 8 hours. So we could even get down to Florida. Um, so yeah, honestly, it was shocking because I was like, I'm working my ass off here
Uh-huh.
and I am not getting paid shit. So it was like it was very shocking. Um, and also we were kind of treated very glamorously, like on the independents. I can remember
hmm
so many shows where like limos were picking us up, and if we did have drivers and stuff, which we often did, they were like, do you guys need anything? Can we go grab
hmm
you lunch? Like everything. So I was a little spoiled, honestly, by the time I got to WWE. I had a really great experience on the indies and was like sort of
hmm
treated like a big star. So yes, it was shocking when I got to WWE, and they don't treat you like that there. At least they didn't used to. I don't know how it is now.
Did they have plans for what they wanted to do with you when you first got there, or was it all just so fresh and so new?
No, so like every day, first of all, there was like no how they have house shows and like,
hmm
there's TV definitely every week. We didn't have TV until
hmm
we had all been there a long time. We were just training, so you really didn't, it was like kind of hard to see like an end in sight.
hmm
I'm like, we're just training every day, killing ourselves, and like we're not even doing television. We did eventually start television at Deep South, and then it was awesome because it gave you something to look forward to, every Thursday, or I think it was
hmm
Thursdays that we did that because Fridays was tape review. But yeah, it was definitely challenging to go from like being like treated, some type of way. And I had a big head too. I was young, like I thought I was something else. So it was shocking, and I was like, did these people? I have to buy my own lunch off of $500 a week? Like, what the heck?
hmm So who were the trainers at that time, and how did you like working with the trainers?
So when I came in, it was Bill DeMott and Jody Hamilton. Jody was more like office, and
hmm
I loved Jody from like the second like we met. Like I still talk to his family, and like I loved the Hamiltons, like just loved them. Bill and I took about 6 months. I had to go through Bill's sort of like hazing that he would do back then. But honestly, like, I mean, you're working for like $1 billion company, so it's to be expected. And so once I got past Bill's initial, where he put me through the real hard stuff in the first 6 months, then we ended up having an amazing relationship, and still to this day also have a really, really good relationship.
It's crazy that it was just like Bill training in one performance, like one developmental territory at that time.
There was only like 30 or 40 of
Hmm.
us. Oh, and then we had Dave came in later, but
Hmm.
yeah, it was Bill in the beginning. Yeah, that was all that there was in the beginning, just Bill, because there was only like 30 of it. There was hardly, I think there was only like three or four girls. How many is there now? Like 25, 30?
Oh,
Like
yeah, there's a
a
ton. It's
ton. Yeah, it was so like, kind of like specialized. Dave Taylor came in later. But that was after we had been there a while.
hmm
Yeah. So it was just Bill for a long time.
So once you get acquainted with Bill and you guys are on good terms, did he work with you for what they wanted, or did you kind of pitch who you wanted to be, or how did that process?
So back then, and I don't know if the communication is better now, but back then the communication sucked. And
Hmm.
all they did was tell me back then they did not want me to be, because the feeling was that I looked so much like Tori Wilson.
Hmm.
And that so I kept my hair actually much darker. Like they say, darken your hair, like so you're not like so Tori Wilson-esque. And then Jody and I think Vince, but I'm not sure. But Jody definitely wanted me to do like a super thick, like obnoxious Southern accent. So it was ridiculous. Because I already have a Southern accent. I mean, I've been away for a long time, but I still have a little bit of a Southern accent. So back then, I was like fresh off like the turnip truck, basically. I mean, it was
Hmm.
really thick back then. So I didn't necessarily have to do like an accentuation of the accent, but they liked that. And so they just said, we don't want you to be another Tory um knockoff. So I think they went with like the Southern Belle kind of pretentious kind of gimmick because of that. But then I ended up doing the Tory thing anyways, because after almost 2 years there, I was like, I don't like my hair this dark. I like to be blonde. And I'm tired of like being who they want me to be, and I want to be who I want to be. So I made my hair bright blonde again. And then I got called to TV within a week or two. I didn't ask anybody, didn't tell anybody. And they said, "Oh, this looks like Tori Wilson's sister. Let's bring her in for that." After they had been telling me for years, like that, they didn't want me to have too blonde of hair because of Tori.
So it was just a random that you're going to go to TV and this is what you're doing.
No, they didn't tell me shit. They, yeah, so I got the call. I had no, so by this time we had already been transferred to
Hmm.
Florida. So we were at FCW, and we were again. I'm back to no television because
Hmm.
I'm now in. They've shut down DeepSouth, and I'm now in it was like, I guess you would call it like a factory type
Hmm.
building. There's like canned corn. They haven't even cleaned out the building. They've just thrown a wrestling ring in the middle of it. There's no AC. We don't need heat here in Florida, but there's no heat. There's no AC, and there's like canned corn and canned vegetables, green beans and stuff everywhere. And so then it's back to training with no television again, but I guess our tapes were getting sent up. And so no, they called me, and I hadn't been doing television, so I didn't have gear. So they called me. I had 3 days to get ready for television. And so I had to call Jolene, who Jolene is now one of the main seamstresses
Hmm.
of WWE, but I've known her for a bazillion years. I met her through Malaya Hasaka, who introduced me so many years ago. So I called Jolene. I think she was working for TNA at the time. But I said, girl, I said, I need an outfit. Can we do it in 3 days? And so she did, but it wasn't like it, we didn't have the time, nor did I get any direction on anything. So again, I just said, oh, I like red, make a little red one piece
Hmm.
outfit, like what, and we'll just try to figure it out. So no, I had no idea what I was going up there for. I had no idea what was gonna be done. I had no idea I was going into a storyline with Tori, like nothing, nothing, like nothing. I just and then the anxiety of not knowing, and being like a person, like I'm like very like Capricorn. And so I'm
Hmm.
like, oh, if I can plan, I can study, or I can, watch tape or learn my history or like whatever. And I couldn't do anything because no one told me anything. So they didn't even tell me anything the day of TV, the day I debuted.
So after you debuted, was the direction the same? Just no
I
contact, like
never. I never knew, even when I debuted, what I was going to be doing.
Hmm.
Apparently, and I heard this later, apparently I was supposed to, like, Vince wanted me, like, to come out of the audience dressed in regular clothes. I walked down the ramp in wrestling, in like wrestling gear. So like, it was so wild. Like how nobody communicated with you. And I didn't know from week to week. Like I was only there like 2 weeks because I quit right before a 3 week European tour. But I didn't know like what I was doing. I just did what I was told for that day, but I didn't make it very long because I was already on like a lot of pills at this point, like a lot of Xanax and anti-anxiety pills.
Hmm.
So I and then being on the road and all that was like, ooh, sent me like over the edge mentally. Back then we didn't have mental health options
Hmm.
and things like we do now. And like there should be a course, and this is something that I actually like to be helpful in when I'm in the locker rooms and stuff now, is like a mentorship for the girls or and the guys, like, but mentorship on how to get through the mental part of it, because that is such a huge part of it. And I mean, I was a good wrestler, I'm a great character, but I did not have the tools to be working in a million billion dollar corporation where it's like a Shark Tank, because there's such little amount of time on TV. Everybody wants it. And if you're coming in as like the new person and you're young, I was really young because I started wrestling when I'm 19. Like, I didn't have the tools. And so the Shark Tank just felt like I was getting eaten alive. And so I just started popping more Xanax.
Do you feel like at that time that it was just for you as a talent, there was no like there was three more of you down in developmental, so if it didn't work, like they just weren't there, they didn't have your back or were in your corner to see what you were struggling or going through.
So what I think that they're really lucky to have now, because I've made a lot of friends on social media
Hmm.
that I've met in real life, 6 months after social media, we met on social media. What we didn't have, we were so separated from everyone and everything. We never saw anyone at TV unless, and they really, when we were at DeepSouth, they didn't even sometimes send us to the Raws and the Smackdowns. So I think that, just sort of going up there and just and I was the first one from developmental to get brought up and make it to TV. So I think Lauren, like Angelina Love she had gone to Ohio, or yeah, she had gone to OVW, and then I think something happened and she got let go. Chantel had gotten let go. Like there was like, I was like the only one. I became the Bella twins mom, and then Natty and I were like the veterans.
Hmm.
But I was the first one to get called up to TV. So I was like up there. I didn't know a single soul.
Hmm.
So it was like very jarring and very like scary. And then I don't know how it is now, but the girl, sometimes the girls are mean. And
Hmm.
I was like very popular in high school and on the independents. And I'm like, wait, why don't people I am so likable. Why don't
Hmm.
people like me? Like, what's happening? And really it was just sort of likely that same hazing that like I got through with Bill, but for some reason the girls felt more brutal, and I was already cracking sort of like
Hmm.
under the pressure of everything. So I just basically just quit like before a 3 week European tour.
Was that a hard decision for you to make?
I was on pills like so
Hmm.
much, like I was on so much Xanax that like I don't it's hard now thinking back and like looking back at it, like the opportunity that was being given to me, like yeah, it's hard because I thought I was so good that
Hmm.
I would get chances elsewhere. If I left WWE, and I didn't need, for me, it's things are never about just the money for me. Like it's about how do I feel? Like, does it feel good? Does it not feel good? Um, but honestly, I should have talked to Johnny and Tommy. Like, I feel like that, but we were of the generation that are told, don't complain, don't say anything, don't, you just suck it up. And like, I should have told like Tommy and Johnny, who brought me, they handpicked me and brought me in. I should have said, hey, like, I'm kind of getting bullied. I'm feeling really beat up. My depression and anxiety is like through the roof. And Johnny asked me, he said, "Is there anything that we can do to get you to stay? Like, is there anything?" And I was like, "Nope." And I was like, "I just don't, it's just not working out for me." That was not the truth. What was
Mhm.
the truth was that the bullying and the for me my pill use, and unfortunately I come from a family where we like the Xanax is fine, like, because it's from a doctor. The Xanax is not fine. Like,
Mhm.
this is a numbing of things. But again, I didn't have the tools, and but I should have told someone. Like, Stephanie was amazing too. Like, I had only met her a few times, but she was like a big cheerleader of mine too. I should have told someone, like, hey, I'm feeling beat the heck up, and like I'm about to have a nervous breakdown because I come from a small town. I'm not used to corporations and big business.
Mhm.
And I am just not prepared for it. But as like a kid, like you don't know these things. Like, so that's what I try to like when I'm like hanging out with the young girls and stuff now. Like, I try to be like a mentor for them because we certainly did not have anybody in my, there was only men.
Mhm.
Like, we didn't even have female trainers. Like, there was only men. So that, yeah. So there's like, I have a ton of like sort of sadness and regret
Mhm.
around that. Because I'm like, had I just had the mental health tools, I think things would have ended up differently for me. But, it is what it is.
Have you had any conversations with them since then? Did they ever check on you or
WWE?
yeah.
Yeah, so my ex-husband ended up going back to work there like I think 3 years later.
Mhm.
And there was like talks of me coming in, but I think they just felt like it was too risky. Like,
Mhm.
I don't actually know because like I could like Steamboat and I were really close, like Ricky and I were close, like I had people there really like pulling for me. And I think by that time I was only like 29 or so, 30. Like, I was still pretty young. And so, I talked to them definitely a few times. Dreamer too was always a big fan. Um, and a good friend, but I don't know. I didn't push too hard because at that time I had gotten into spirituality and I was like, what is mine can't be taken. And if something is meant for me, then it will circle back around for me. You know what I mean?
Mhm. What were the biggest differences between Deep South and FCW? Because you were both there on the ground
Yeah,
floor
yeah,
for.
yeah. So when we got to FCW, Bill and Jody were not there, and it was Dr. Tom was the head of did Bill go with us for like a hot minute? I feel like Bill might have gone for like a hot minute and then maybe got let go like shortly after we were there. Um, and then so then it became Dr. Tom. And Dr. Tom is just and I knew Dr. Tom before from like the
Mhm.
indies. So it was like a reunion. He did frown heavily like at the time because he's old school, like a law with like relationships and wrestling. He
Mhm.
felt like that you should not be doing that at all. Which obviously like that's fine. That's like his old school like mentality. But Dr. Tom is always just business. Like, but he is a great teacher. I worked a ton with Dr. Tom and Les Thatcher in the Carolinas. I would do every single like seminar that they put on. I would
Mhm.
go and do so I already knew him really well, and he's a great coach. So different than Bill.
Mhm.
Dr. Tom is much more like detached and sort of just like this is like the business and this is the way that it is and this is what you do. Like, um yeah, he was just a great teacher and like calm and steady, as where Bill was like more like emotional. And so it's just different, different styles
Mhm.
of teaching. And yeah, but Dr. Tom was a great teacher, but that was not my first rodeo with Dr. Tom. I knew him
Mhm.
really, really well before.
How was life been after WWE?
So it's good. I
Mhm.
mean, like my life turned out good. Like I manage a med spa, like I have an 8-year-old little boy. It's funny because I was able to I did WoW superheroes like a few years ago. And you know what's funny? These calls for me like come out of nowhere where I'll just be like, la la la, I'm going off on my little business. And Wow, I got a call from Wow a few years ago and it was like, shit, I haven't been in a ring and like I think it had been 8 years at that point since I had been in a ring. And they were like, well, we'd really like for you to come out and reteam Team Blondage. And I said, well, give me 6 months. And that's what we did. And so I got to do that. And then I went to NWA a few weeks ago to see some friends and
Hmm.
just hang out. And then I started getting messages about wrestling bookings then, and I was like, it's funny, like when your relationships are really good and my relationships
Hmm.
are really good, I really value friendship and community and like all of that. Like I feel like people always invite me to do stuff. So it's good. Would I have liked to do I got a TV run with WoW, which was great. Would I have liked like a real, TV run? Like, yeah, maybe still, even to this day. Like,
Hmm.
but it's like it all works out as it should.
Absolutely. What's your son think about his parents being wrestling? Is he a wrestler? Is he a wrestling fan? Does he like it?
He's so sweet and like so quiet. So at NWA, they actually pulled him up. Like, and the girls had told me, they're like, Elijah, the t-shirt got little boy. And I was like, yes, that is amazing. Me with all my Leo placements. But
Hmm.
he's much shyer
Hmm.
than me. And so they pulled him up and he did good. He like did his little pose and like, stood up on the ring or whatever. And I thought he did great. His presence was great. But then we got back down and went to go sit down again. And he was like, I'm never doing that ever again. He's so embarrassed. And I was like, really? You did so good though. So he like thinks it's cool, but he doesn't. But I will say he's got a lot of natural talent and
Hmm.
ability, like with throwing a football, with running the ropes, with rolls. Like so, who knows? But that I would never. I think that you're a guide for your children. I
Hmm.
would never want to force him. Like he will do and be what he wants to do and be, not what my opinion is.
Do you have anything coming up?
Yeah, actually, I got an old promoter that I used to work for like many, many years on and off just messaged me. And not this coming weekend, but next weekend, I'm flying out to Atlanta for UCW which is Universal Championship Wrestling, doing their show that Saturday and Sunday. And it's like at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. So I've done the shows before. They're super fun. And I get to work with Tiffany, who's one of my buddies, who I went to
Hmm.
the NWA show to see her. Um, and Samantha. I used to work with Samantha on these shows years ago, Baby Doll's daughter.
Hmm.
And so it's so funny. Like now I just saw both of them. Now I'm working with Tiffany on these shows. And then Tracy Taylor's daughter, then who I was in developmental with,
Hmm.
I'm working the next night, and I'm like, wow, like yay, yay, wrestling, so fun. So it's like super exciting and fun, and yeah, I had some personal stuff going on the last few years, but now
Hmm.
everything's like calm and good, and I kind of got past everything. And I just healed from like a surgery that I had to have, like a medical thing like a few months ago. So now I'm like I kind of have like a new lease on life. So I'm like, yes, let's go. What can we manifest?
Where can people reach out to you at?
So I am really active on Instagram. Everything from my Instagram, which is magical.krissy, feeds into my Facebook, which is just
Okay.
Krissy Vane. And then my email's listed on both. So
If you had
yeah.
any advice to give to anybody getting into professional wrestling, what would it be?
So the biggest thing, and you think you're old by the time you're 30, but you're not. Um, so the biggest thing was that your relationships are going to carry you farther than anything else does, further than talent, further than charisma. If you're somebody that treats people badly and people don't like, they are not that will work when you are younger, likely, and you're like younger and like cuter or whatever. But as you get older, the reason why I am booked on anything nowadays is because I have such good relationships with people and I value, value, value my friendships so deeply. And so I would tell people to like be a decent person and like don't stab people in the back and be honest and like live with like integrity. And also just me and Sue Young have talked about this many times through the years. Just keep showing up and don't worry about like where is it going. I was always like, oh, I need to make it by the time I'm 30. I need to make it. No, just enjoy the ride and like everything will work out as it's supposed to. But we don't see that when we're young.
I agree. Well, I just want to say thank you for taking the time out today. Thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling and what you continue to do. It's been an honor to be able to talk to you a little bit about your career.
Yes, thank you, Brian, for having me.
If there's ever anything that I can do, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you. You are a great interviewer.
Thank you.